All right, now let's explain the product rule and do some examples from the product rule. First of all, we are going to look at the formula and then go through the steps and then work some examples. The formula for a product rule is you take the first factor, that's what first F means, you multiply it by the derivative, so DER represents derivative of the second factor, and then you add it to the second factor multiplied by the derivative of the first factor. Now, to kind of simplify that, I just say 1d2 plus 2d1, which I think is easy to remember. 1dt plus 2d1, where 1 is the first factor, d2 is the derivative of the second factor, 2 is the second factor, and d1 is the derivative of the first factor. So let's go to some steps here. The first step is to identify the first and second factors. Product rule is when you have an expression that's made up of two things that are being multiplied by each other. And we call those factors, okay? So you have to identify, hey, what are the two things being multiplied by each other? The first thing, that's the first factor, multiplied by the second thing, that's going to be the second factor, all right? Next, we substitute those two factors into the product rule formula, okay? Whoops, skip one. The second step is we're going to take the derivative of the first and second factor. So once we identify the first and second factors, we use the power rule to take the derivative of the first and second factors. Then we have a first factor, a second factor, and the derivative of a first factor, and the derivative of a second factor. Once you have those four things, then you have everything you need to complete your product rule formula. After you do that, you want to substitute those things into the product rule formula. And then from there, you simply simplify. All right, let's do an example. So first we have to identify our first and second factors. What's being multiplied in this case? Obviously you have a group 6x plus 5 being multiplied by a group x cubed minus 2. So I say that my first factor is going to be 6x plus 5. And my second factor is going to be, and what I'll do is I'll just put kind of colons here so I won't confuse. The second factor is going to be x cubed minus 2. Okay. Now we want to take the derivative of the first factor, power rule. The derivative of 6x is just going to be 6. The derivative of 5 is 0. Then we take the derivative of the second factor, power rule, multiply the 3 in front, you get 3x, subtract 1, you get squared, and then the derivative of negative 2 is 0. All right, so let's go ahead and plug this in to our formula. So we have the first factor, which is 6x plus 5. That's being multiplied by the derivative of the second factor. That's right here, 3x squared. Plus the second factor right here, x cubed minus 2 times the derivative of the first factor. Here's the derivative of the first factor, times 6. Okay, that's going to give us our derivative. Now all we have to do from here is we just have to simplify it. So oftentimes you'll have to distribute. So I have to multiply this term by both of the terms on the inside of the parentheses. 3x squared multiplied by 6x is going to give us 18x cubed. 3x squared times 5 is going to give us 15x squared. 6 times x cubed is 6x cubed. And 6 times negative 2 is negative 12. Okay, so we're going to combine like terms, and then that gives us 18x cubed. Oops, got to add the 6. So that gives us 24x cubed. So that takes out the 18 and the 6. And then we have plus 15x squared minus 12 will be our derivative. So in the case where they gave us the original explanation or the original expression as y, we'll say dy dx equals 24x cubed plus 15x squared minus 12. Okay. Now let's look at this other example right here. And let's say instead of giving us a y equals, they gave us this f of x function notation, right? Remember, this is just symbolism, but I'm just switching it up so that you know how to write the derivative in terms of y or in terms of f of x. All right, so what are our steps? Our steps are to identify the first and second factors, okay? So my first factor in this case is going to be square root of x. Now, I know I'm going to be doing the power rule, and so I identify that. It's hard to do the power rule in this form, so let me rewrite it in exponential form. Square root of x in exponential form is going to be x to the 1/2. Now, what's my second factor? 4 minus x squared. Then we take the derivative of the first factor, which gives us 1/2, because you multiply the power times the coefficient at the front, which in this case is an invisible 1, and we get 1/2. Then we subtract 1 from here. Okay, so that gives us x to the negative 1/2, because 1/2 minus 2/2 is negative 1/2. Then we take the derivative here. So what's the derivative of the second factor? Derivative of 4 is 0. What's the derivative of negative x squared? Take the exponent, multiply it by the coefficient at the front, and we get negative 2, then subtract 1. So now we have negative 2x. Then we plug into the formula. So the formula says 1d2, all right? So first factor, x to the 1/2, times the derivative of the second factor. So that's times negative 2x. Then add 2d1, here's 2, 4 minus x squared, times d1. d1 is 1/2 x to the negative 1/2. All right, now we just have to simplify. X to the 1/2 times negative 2x, okay, gives us negative 2. And then when we're multiplying exponents, you add these exponents up here. So we have to take 1 and add the 1/2. That gives us 1 and 1/2, or 3/2. So we have negative 2x to the 3/2. Then we're going to add, multiplying here. So here we're going to distribute, okay? We're going to multiply the 1/2 x and negative 1/2 by the 4, and also by the negative x squared. So 1/2 times x and negative 1/2 times 4 is just going to give us 2x to the negative 1/2. And then 1/2 x to negative 1/2 times negative x squared is just going to give us negative 1/2. And then remember, you have the 2 here and the negative 1/2 here. We're just going to add these. So 2 plus a negative 1/2 is going to give us positive 1/2. So we have positive x to the 1/2. So now all we have to do here is combine terms if we can. And otherwise, then you do want to get rid of any negative exponents. So we have f prime of x is going to be equal to negative 2x to the 3/2, plus we're going to flip this to the bottom and change the sign, x to the positive 1/2. There's positive 1/2. And then you're going to, again, this one doesn't really need to change. So it's 1/2 and x to the 1/2, or you could put that at the top like that, or out to the side. It's the same thing. All right, so no more negative exponents. We don't have any more like terms, so this would be your final answer. Okay, final example for our product rule. What if I have something squared? Well, I know that that's representing something multiplied by itself. So I have x plus 1 multiplied by x plus 1. Now I can identify my first and second factors and their derivatives, okay? So my first factor is going to be x plus 1. My second factor is going to be x plus 1. The derivative of the first factor is going to be, derivative of x is going to be 1, because there's an invisible 1 right here. And derivative of 1 is 0. So that's all you got here. Same thing over here. Derivative of x is 1, and derivative of 1 is 0. So now we have to apply the formula. The formula which says 1d2 plus 2d1. So 1, which is x plus 1, times d2 plus 2, which is x plus 1, times d1, which is 1. So in this case, you'll have, if you're using function notation, f prime of x, and then you distribute, but you're just multiplying them by 1 anyway. So you get the same thing, x plus 1, and 1 times x, and then 1 times 1, again, you get x plus 1. So we will, whoops, I was writing below the camera there. But so as I was saying before, what we're going to do is we're going to distribute, and we distribute it, and we got x plus 1 plus x plus 1. Then you combine like terms, x and x is going to be 2x. So f prime of x here equals 2x plus 2. All right, so that is some examples of the product rule. Make sure you can identify the first and second factors, take their derivatives, and then you just plug them into the formula and simplify.